Thanks for organising and for inviting me along to come and have a little bit of a chat about some of my experiences working particularly within female youth football. And today I'm going to be talking, I guess, more about, as I said, just a lot of the challenges that come with working in that environment, being very open and very honest about some of the mistakes that I've made, but also being very open and honest, hopefully, about some of the lessons that I've learned there. Now, just to, I guess, familiarise people with the background and the context of female youth football in England. We've got the FA Girls Talent Pathway, and the pathway is in place to try to help and support young girls all the way through from grassroots clubs in a strategic manner, hopefully giving them the best chance of progressing all the way through to the women's senior team. Now, the majority of the work that I've done over the past probably now 8 years or so, I would say I've been, I guess, truly embedded within the environment as opposed to just working within it, has been done with either players or teams that fall within that square. Now, predominantly, that work has been done within what are now the regional talent clubs, prior to that, centres of excellence. Now, I guess, again, an important part of the context is understanding what success is within that environment, because it is slightly different to the, I guess, the boys' academy setup, and we have, I guess, different things that we're judged on, things that, in some ways, more importantly, our licence is determined by. So one of those is our player exit trajectories. So after under 16, how many players do we have that go into professional women's football? Whilst we've got players with us, how many of them become youth international football players? There's also elements in there around kind of business and financial strategy and viability that are important. How well we support both individuals and teams, and there's lots of other things. But I guess in terms of things that impacted on my work, they're probably four of the most important elements that have impacted on the things that I did on a day-to-day basis. Now, some of the key challenges that come within that and working within this particular type of environment are those that are up there. So staff turnover is a big one. It's not uncommon that because it is largely a lower paid environment, it's not uncommon that you'll have different staff. I don't know if I'm lucky, fortunate or unlucky to have been in a situation where with the organisation I've worked for, actually I've lasted 3 technical directors and 2 general managers, which has made life both beneficial and difficult at times. Issues there in terms of visual fully expect, in terms of financial support, and also your lifespan as a licence holder is limited in terms of the amount of time that you're awarded it for, and that can be limited to either 1 to 3 years, pretty much. And within the environment, because it is an elite development environment, we also have a high level of player turnover, and with that comes also then a high degree of parent turnover as well. So there's a lot of work that goes into forming, reforming, and forming in different relationships with key different stakeholders. And some of the things, I guess, that again impacted on my day-to-day working a lot. The organisation that I work with, we had less than half of the budget of our next nearest financial competitor. So a lot of constraints there. And my client base within the organisation, when you include players, parents, coaches, and other people that I work with, is around 200 people. So I was the only person within my organisation that had my role. So, things in there. But broadly, I guess I'm going to talk about this. How do we take this group of young people, or young people within this group, from this stage of their journey, whether at a regional talent club, and how do we help them, hopefully, get to this stage for those that can, and how do we help the young people that aren't going to get to that stage get as far in football as they can and keep enjoying and being happy and healthy through that experience. So for me, the 2 key words there are happy and healthy, because it's very much, the work that I do is very much a person-first approach, rather than a performance-based approach. And I think it's really important that within this context and within this journey, that performance and well-being are inextricably linked. So from that point of view, there's lots of things that we need to consider. In terms of talent development environments, many people are a bit familiar with the literature around what is a successful talent development environment, what isn't, what are the criteria for environments. And again, if we start thinking about some of those criteria, the bottom one for us is a really important one. Continuing producing top-level athletes that provide them with the resources to be able to transition. So again, as an environment, we're very proud of the fact that virtually every player that's left us under 16 level is playing within the top 3 divisions within female football now. We're also very, very proud of the fact that in the past 3 years, we've also had 9 players that have become youth internationals. So as a successful talent development environment, I guess you could say that we kind of meet that criteria. But one of the key challenges is that still, quite often, on a national level, young players think that they're great enough before they've had the time to develop. So how do we start working within that? The other part to consider is the evidence-informed practitioner. I like to think I am one. I like to think I'm very evidence-informed. But in terms of talent development literature, psychology of football literature, there aren't really all that many girls or women present in it. So we've got a little bit of a problem there. Which is particularly a problem when you start recognising that actually contextually specific evidence is a really key part of the work that we do. And a lot of the evidence that we've got about the lived experiences and developmental experiences, particularly of female youth players, is really small scale. It's limited to a handful of players in terms of some of the qualitative research, literally. And to my knowledge, please anybody in the room correct me and give me the papers if you can find them, because I can't. There's little to nothing in the way of any applied consulting papers that have come within female football academies. So from that point of view, challenge number 2 is, how do you be an evidence-based practitioner? And as I said, most of the evidence that we've got is fairly small scale, both in terms of number of players and number of papers. So we've got a couple of qualitative studies there that have looked at factors that have influenced player level outcomes. And we know that players that make it typically have strong support networks, very important kind of psychosocial assets around things like self-regulation, volitional behaviours, resilience, those things that have been mentioned a lot today. And we know that players that didn't make it had different experiences. Troublesome coach-athlete interactions, troublesome teacher-parent interactions, troublesome behaviours that they started displaying at kind of 13, 14 years old but got away with because they were really talented at football, so coach turned a blind eye to it, those sorts of things. And we've got quantitative studies that have now started to look at what talent development environments are. But I guess one of the key, more recent findings is that we know that if we can shape an environment in such a way that has got a long-term focus, that is developing that's using a holistic approach to development, players are more likely to aspire to and believe that they are able to become professional football players. Now that's key. If you're thinking about teenage girls between the ages of kind of 13 and 16, or you're thinking about children between the ages of kind of 8 and 13, that's a really important part, having the belief and having the aspiration to actually do that at a time where still, with some of their key influences, there is really a perception that there is such a thing as a professional football career for girls. But challenge number 3 for me is, how do we create this long-term environment when you've got a low budget, when you've got a context where you are under pressure to continually produce senior professional players or youth international players, and in a context where you don't know if at the end of the season you're still going to have a licence there to work with. So that's challenge number 3. What was my remit within this organisation? And this is my introduction to challenge number 4. So I was approached by the technical director. I was signed by the technical director and the general manager. I report to the technical director, the general manager, and now the club chair. I was appointed to work with players between the ages of 8 and 16. The coach is the technical director, the general manager, all the support staff and parents. I also had to liaise with FA reviewers who reviewed our quality for our licence, liaise with youth international coaches of our players on their progress, liaise with the FA regional contacts within the environment, liaise with schools and teachers, and the one that I missed off there is liaise with parents. So who the hell is my client? How do I manage things like limits of confidentiality within and outside the club? Huge challenge. So I guess the next part of it is around some of the things that I think are pretty important. How did I try and meet them? What mistakes did I make along the way? I've got one of the things that's come through today is there's a lot around, in psychology, how do we show any effects? How do we use feedback from different things to show that stuff has worked, in inverted commas? We don't have the machines that beep up and light and so on and so forth. So I'll put a little bit of that in over lunch, and then some of the elements around lessons learned. So I guess one of the first mistakes I made working in this environment was viewing these two diagrams, A, as different, and then B, ascribing very quickly to the fact that this is the only one we should have a look at. When in actual fact, this is probably more important for me. Because I went into the environment at a time, as I said, where sports psychology was very new to a lot of people, and I found out very quickly that this was probably going to be a stretch too far for many, many people, including trying to facilitate that myself. So this kind of relationship between these two diagrams became very important, because in order to progress to this, it was first important to start working here. So working with key stakeholders, but also getting key stakeholders working together, each within their individual circles, and then using that as a way of trying to progress forwards so that we can start moving towards this, but also accepting of the fact that at times we would need to kind of go back and forth between the two. And I also made the mistake in this as well, but because I've been approached by a very well respected technical director, and a well-respected general manager within women's and girls football, that automatically I would probably have the respect of the people that I was going to be working with as well in terms of parents and the coaches. Yeah, some smiling faces in the audience, that's what I thought as well. So from that point of view, it was really important to go in there with a very open mind, not kind of go in there as the person that knows it all and being very, very open to what people needed. Now, in terms of youth sport consulting, particularly working with youth athletes, many people will probably be aware that there isn't huge amounts of work around there in terms of guiding practice. But one of the things that I found quite interesting is the youth sport consulting model. So I'm going to look at some specific examples of this and how it's informed my work, particularly around this first part of it, where the key thing for me going into any environment and going into this environment was just asking the question, how can I help? In my own mind, my reflection was, what value can I add? And rather than kind of going in and wanting to go look around the room and say, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, and then a textbook that says that you shouldn't do it, it was more around understanding what went on, understanding the decisions that people made, why they made them, and then how I could then work within that context to try to enrich the experiences. And for me, you know, it's a really valuable lesson around if I want to know the answers, I want to help people generate answers, then I've first got to get people to start asking questions. And I've got to get people to first start asking questions of themselves and of me, and of the other people in the organisation. So that was a really important part. Now the next thing is this idea of game and practice observation. I've been really fortunate. I don't know if I'm really fortunate, but I think I have. That in this organisation, I was actually invited into the organisation before I started working there to go and observe games, observe training, go and see what's going on, and then that just became the norm. But because it became the norm that I was there, what I did also became the norm for people. I was just another member of support staff that was there to try to help to develop players. I wasn't the psychologist where you kind of went and you sent the broken athletes over there to be fixed. It was more around this idea that if I'm here and people see me working around different strategies and see me inputting into those, and people just come and say hello and make a smiling face and all those sorts of things, it becomes quite a challenge. It becomes quite a real beneficial there. And some elements around this assessment, I hate the word, but it actually helps the providers with some valuable feedback. And within the specific context, some stuff here is important. So we got feedback from lots of different things around wellness reporting, around kind of the use of different objective measures, getting feedback through a talent development environment questionnaire. Rostering questionnaire for junior athletes is a really important one, particularly given some of the impact that can have on girls' careers. Perceived stress scale, and also looking at things like anxiety inventories in specific cases. So those sorts of things are quite helpful. But again, a mistake that I made was not anticipating that players might be quite scared of this. So you've got a player that turns up and they tells us that they're only feeling 7 or 8 out of 10 because they haven't slept very well, and they're an England player and they think they're going to be watched by an England coach. It's like, well, very quickly I realised that a lot of my work was, okay, how do we get 8 out of 8 if we can't be 10 out of 10? We've also got, obviously, the work that we did, which was individual and group-based. What we're too surprised to hear based on today, that it was individual one-to-one work, it was team-based work in various workshops, it was on-the-pitch work with players, with coaches, as well, and doing various kind of parent-related workshops. So all those sorts of things become the overall model of how we work. Now, a lot of the feedback-related stuff is, in terms of demonstrating the success of different things. Yes, we can get numbers and we can get data from inventories, and when people ask for individual player stuff and I say no and I get in trouble, we find ways around it, and we can look at kind of multiple case means and those sorts of things. Or we can look at feedback from players around how players think that they've developed and changed in terms of their own performance, or in terms of their own attitudes to different things that are natural parts of performance. Or we can start talking to sceptical parents, and we can start seeing how sceptical parents' views have changed or not. Or we can start showing examples of things that players have produced themselves. So in terms of answering that question around how does sports psychology show the effect of sports psychology, well, we can't really show the effect. That's a really challenging one, we know that in many cases. But what we can do is show how we might have contributed to making a difference to a young person's life within this context. And these are things that are really important, and they go across football, school, normal life, all those different sorts of things. So for me, in terms of key lessons learned, first, it's very difficult to be all things to all people all the time. And when you don't have the funds that are perhaps available in other places, you do need to start thinking a lot. You do need to be very creative. but quite often it will be the passion that will pull you through all that. And a lot of different things that have, I guess, informed me have been people first and foremost, young people first and foremost. Leave your ego at the door. Don't walk through the door thinking that you know everything, and be very, very open to the fact that A, some people might not talk to you, but B, when they're talking to you about stuff, there's some value to them, and if it's a value to them, it's a value to you. Knowing your stuff enough, people have got to understand you as well, and they've got to know why it's of value. And again, hopefully at some point during my career I'll be able to achieve that. Unless you're prepared to ask the questions, you can't give the answers that people want, or help them to get the answers that they want. And for me, because of the amount of work that I do on the pitch, real time in training and games, reflection in action is just as important, if not more so, than reflection on action. Soft skills really important. How well you form relationships is key part of the work that I've done, and I think that being able to start spending all the time to form those relationships has probably been as important as the skills that I've got, or the knowledge that I've got as a psychology practitioner. And then the last one there, as I mentioned, there isn't really a great deal of evidence around in terms of female youth football. So this idea of an evidence-based, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Sometimes you're left with no option but to trust your instincts based on the available evidence that is there, and then do the best that you can with that.